Instagram teen accounts have automatic protections for what teens see and who can contact them, plus time management tools. And Instagram will continue adding built-in safety features to help create age-appropriate experiences. Learn more about teen accounts and Instagram's ongoing work to protect teens online at instagram.com/teenaccounts.
Welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea, and this is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. It is a big week here on the All Things Nintendo podcast as we not only have a major AAA release to get a review for, but also, in case you haven't heard, it's Pokémon Day. We will be starting by running down the latest news outside of the Pokémon Presents live stream. Then we will transition to a review of Resident Evil Requiem. And then finally, on the tail end, we will break down all of the news announced this week by the Pokémon Company. Joining me for this first segment is Game Informer's own Wesley LeBlanc. Wes, how's it going?
Hello. It's going really, really well. It's been a very awesome week for games. I can finally talk about Resident Evil Requiem, which might be my favorite game I've ever reviewed for Game Informer. Certainly so, given the score I give it. And I'm very excited to talk about it here.
Yeah, so you have, we're getting into it after the news here, but you have, you've officially gone beyond any score I've given at Game Informer. So,
oh wow,
9.5 is the highest I've given at Game Informer. So we will get into that in a little bit, but I'm very happy that you liked the game so much because it is one that is on, I think, the radars of a lot of folks here who listen to the All Things Nintendo podcast. It's kind of a further signal that like third-party support is kind of coming back to the Switch because, you know, it's kind of been the situation with Nintendo consoles as of late where third-party support is rip-roaring right out of the gate. And like we saw it with the Wii. We saw it in the beginning with the Wii U. Saw it with the Switch, especially after it was like so popular. But then like a lot of the developers kind of get to a point where they go, this is not either worth our time, as was the case with the Wii U, or it's just not powerful enough to allow us to port these games that we have on other systems over. We saw that with Marvel's Midnight Suns, where Firaxis had announced a Switch version, and then they quickly realized, like, one, that game's not really selling very well, and that's unfortunate because it was actually a very good game. But two, like, it was just going to be a monumental task to get a Switch version created from a game that was pretty graphically intense. So it's nice to see a major AAA third-party game coming to Switch, and from what I understand, not being some sort of super compromised version, and you know, also being a very good game.
Yeah, and it's also on day one, which I heard on a podcast yesterday. They didn't mention a source or anything, so I don't know if it's completely true, but like it's the first AAA day one launched a game to launch on Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox in over like 2 decades.
Whoa.
Which is crazy. Which made sense in my head because even the support that Nintendo got third party wise from AAA, which, you know, is heavy hitters like Capcom and whatnot, is usually like after the fact. Especially with the Switch gen, it was like the ports were not typically day one. And I did not fact check it, but off the top of my head, I was like, that sounds right. Actually, I couldn't think of.
So wait, what was the qualifier there?
Around 2 decades since the last time a AAA game launched day and date on Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox. Not made by Nintendo, even though I don't think that changes anything.
What about Sonic Frontiers?
Was that day one?
I mean, unless I'm like blacking out and completely missing, I feel like.
Oh, that could. I
mean, that would certainly qualify as a AAA. I mean, that said, the Switch version was highly compromised. So, I mean, maybe they're just saying like something that is akin to the other platforms.
Yeah.
But I'm just looking at my.
It was day and date, so they were just completely wrong. Well, that's
lying.
why. Yeah, look at that. That's why we have the Nintendo Pro here, and I'm glad I backed it up by saying, "Don't quote me on this." But yes, I do think from what I've seen of Requiem, which I'll say it here now because I didn't play this on Switch 2, but I have watched Switch 2 videos and listened to other people talk about the Switch 2 experience. It is like great. Like it is 60 FPS. Obviously, it is not going to look as good as PS5 Pro, for example, or PC. And I think that's probably the hair is probably where that shows the most from what I've seen. But like, I mean, it's pretty fantastic what Capcom has done here on Switch too, and it's a as you mentioned a hopeful big sign that like other publishers and developers will support Switch 2 day one launches, if not additions later down the road.
Well, we will be getting into your full thoughts on Resident Evil Requiem at the tail end of this segment. We've got some news to get to outside of the Pokemon Presents. And then in the main segment, we will be devoting that entirely to the Pokemon Day festivities. But first, a reminder that this show is brought to you by the fine folks who support me on Patreon. Without them, this show literally would not exist. You can get access to the community Discord for as little as $3 a month, where we are talking Nintendo, the latest gaming news, and showing off our collections all day long. But there are also $5 and $10 tiers that get you early and ad-free episodes, plus shoutouts at the end of every show. You can join the team that makes this show happen by going to patreon.com and searching for Brian Shea or All Things Nintendo. It is only because of the fine folks who support this podcast on Patreon that I'm able to keep going as an independent entity week after week. All right, Wes, outside of the Pokemon stuff that we'll be hitting in the next segment, it is not the biggest news week in the world of Nintendo. First up, let's. I mean, I didn't even have this in the outline, but let's talk about kind of the giant elephant in the room in terms of like news over the last week. Not necessarily related to Nintendo. In fact, it's related to one of their main competitors. Major shakeup in the world of Xbox. And Xbox has been kind of this collaborator with Nintendo over the last decade, I would say, where we started seeing more and more Xbox games coming really to all platforms, but it started coming to Switch, I feel like, before it came to PlayStation. Like now we're going to have, by the end of this year, we're going to have Halo and I'm assuming Gears of War. Well, Gears of War is already on PlayStation. Halo will be on PlayStation before the end of this year. Fable. And, Forza Horizon 5 is on PlayStation. So, yeah, we have a lot of Xbox stuff on PlayStation, more so than Switch at this point. But that all started with bringing games like Ori and Cuphead and stuff like that to Switch. And even some cases, achievements and Xbox Live features came over to Switch. And a lot of that was spearheaded and championed by folks like Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond. And as of Friday afternoon of last week, we learned that neither of them are at the company anymore. It came out Friday afternoon, very, very late in the news cycle, which is typically where news releases go to be buried. Friday afternoon. That Phil Spencer has announced his retirement. And he was stepping away from Xbox, and Sarah Bond was resigning from her position as, I believe she was the head of Xbox, whereas Phil was the CEO of Microsoft Gaming.
Yeah.
No word on Matt Booty. It seems like he is staying as the head of Xbox Game Studios.
No, Matt Booty actually got a promotion as well. He is
good.
Chief Creative Officer of Microsoft Gaming, and will still continue to lead Xbox Studios in the capacity that he was before. So he's kind of like the on-the-ground person that goes from studio to studio and checks in on them. And he's also now CCO alongside the new Microsoft Gaming CEO.
And then, it seemed very out of nowhere. There has been some reporting to the effect that Phil's retirement was planned, which seems kind of counter to some of the stuff that I've heard behind the scenes. Like,
same.
I'm not privy to share those conversations, but it as somebody who has been involved in some conversations and has heard some things, it seemed kind of counter to some of the things that sounded like they were getting set up. So, but things can change in a moment's notice. So maybe Phil saw the writing on the wall about some stuff that we don't know about, and he was like, "Hey, I'm leaving." And then there was some reporting that Sarah Bond was less planned and seemed like she was kind of ushered out or kind of pushed out. But Yeah, taking their place is Asha Sharma, who is now the executive vice president and CEO of Microsoft Gaming, and she was previously kind of Microsoft's AI champion. It seems.
Yeah, one of them.
Yeah, so I don't know what to expect to this. Obviously, I'm not super thrilled about somebody with an AI background taking over, but she did right out the gate say like, "Hey, we're not going to be putting AI slop in the games." Like it seemed like she was, I mean, the statements were very vague. I don't have any of them handy because I wasn't planning on talking about this on this podcast. It's all been off the top of the dome right here. But like it really seemed like she understood that people would be concerned about somebody who was so heavily involved in the AI side of Microsoft, which I think if you trace all of the problems Microsoft has had in recent years, you can look at two separate things. One, I think it's the unchecked acquisitions that Xbox did, like especially the Activision Blizzard acquisition, which seemed like it really put them at a deficit that they had a hard time overcoming. And two, their Microsoft as a corporation's zealous pursuit of artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. And we've seen them kind of move funds from one division, in this case, or in a lot of cases, it's been the gaming division, over to fund Microsoft's just slavish pursuit of AI and implementing AI in all of their stuff. So I don't know how much I love the fact that we're now combining those two things into one unit. And, you know, we saw, I forget his last, Seamus Buckley, Seamus. Is that his?
Yeah.
One of the creators of Xbox kind of come out and say that like this is kind of the beginning of the end for Xbox, but he has not been at Microsoft for over 20 years at this point. So it's really just as an outside observer, he's saying that. But you know, it does anytime that there's a shakeup in the leadership of any established thing, especially one that has been struggling for a while, there is always kind of doom and gloom that comes out, and you start thinking like, is this the beginning of the end for this brand? I mean, I know a lot of people said that about Game Informer back when Andy McNamara left, and back when Andrew Reiner left. Like everybody was like, oh, that's it, put a bow on Game Informer. And turns out they were a couple years too early on that. But you know, we're back now, so I guess like joke's on them. But yeah, I mean, there always is going to be some sort of doom and gloom that comes with this. And I certainly was like, I mean, I know that a lot of people have a real disdain for the now exiting Xbox leadership, in particular Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond, because they have done so many layoffs. And, you know, I think that they may have put their eggs in far too few baskets, in particular with regards to Game Pass and then like multi-platform expansion. Like even though we at All Things Nintendo see that as a positive because it's bringing games to Switch, it I think makes it so that it kind of cheapened the Xbox brand and made it so it's not as vital to own an Xbox console as it is to own a Switch or own a PlayStation, because if you have a Switch, you know, that gives you the gateway to games like next week's Pokemon Pokopia or, you know, any Mario or Zelda game that comes out, you are going to have access to that. Whereas PlayStation, you know, you get Horizon, you get God of War, you get The Last of Us, Uncharted. Xbox, it used to be, all right, well, if you buy an Xbox, you get Forza, you get Gears, you get Halo. Now you can get those on PlayStation. So it really, I mean, and it sounded like that was a lot of, Phil Spencer was one of the guys who was really making it so that the multi-platform initiative, so you could play this no matter where you are, you can play our games. And Sarah Bond seemed like she was the one who was really pushing this is an Xbox marketing campaign, where it would show like, hey, here's a mobile phone, this is an Xbox. It shows a PC, this is an Xbox. Just basically saying, if you have access to any of these devices, you can play Xbox games. And I think a lot of that fueled a lot of fan backlash, like of the Xbox faithful, who are like, no, I want my Xbox to be the only Xbox, so I have a reason to have this Xbox. But that said, I think that there was a lot of positivity that people like Phil Spencer and people like Sarah Bond did introduce into the Xbox ecosystem. And, you know, Phil in particular, I've interviewed him 3 times. And he always, you could tell he was so clued in to the gaming landscape. Like you can say whatever you want about how like Xbox, especially in these past like 2 or 3 years, has been mismanaged. And I don't know how much of that is to lay at the feet of Phil or lay at the feet of Sarah or anybody else, as much as it is to lay at the feet of just the corporate overlords pressuring them to do more with less, which at Game Informer, we certainly have the understanding of what that feels like as well. So like Phil may have been pressured by even higher ups than him to do certain things. And especially in the wake of that Activision Blizzard acquisition, which was just, record breaking in terms of how much money they spent on that. And hence we saw stuff like the Game Pass price increase that I think really, really felt like a tide turn in terms of like disenchantment with the Xbox brand. But I do think that Phil and Sarah and Matt Booty, who is still at the company, did an amazing job righting the ship of the Xbox One, especially because people forget now, like 12, 13 years later, the Xbox One reveal was an absolute disaster. Like people were writing Xbox's obituary after that because it was like, you can't borrow games. You have to have always connectivity. We're not even going to talk about video games for the first half of this presentation. It's just going to be about how you can use this Xbox One to watch Netflix and stuff like that. And it was such a tone deaf reveal. And Don Matrick was ushered out of the Xbox leadership role after that. And Phil Spencer was kind of promoted and installed as the head of Xbox. And he really did wonders. Him and his team did absolute wonders for that generation, to the point that I was excited for the Xbox Series X, what ended up being the Xbox Series X, because this was the chance for this team that corrected the wrongs of the previous generation. They inherited a mess and they made lemonade out of lemons. I was like, oh, what if they have they have the ultimate say right off the bat? So I was actually very, very stoked for Xbox Series X, and it ended up, I think, taking it in a not great direction in a lot of ways. So I understand. And I'm a Ravens fan. So like, I look at like, this is kind of like they fired John Harbaugh after this most recent season. Sorry if you're not a sports fan, but John Harbaugh was the coach of the Ravens for 18 years. They won a Super Bowl under him. But there was a sense after this last season that every person in a leadership role eventually has a shelf life, regardless of how good they are. And for the Ravens, I think it was maybe a couple of years ago that John Harbaugh's shelf life expired. For Xbox, maybe it was the same situation. Phil was great for Xbox in the Xbox One generation. Sarah was great during that generation. Maybe it was time for a definitive change, and that's what we ended up getting this week.
Yeah, it was quite a huge story, and one that's still kind of evolving, in part because of like you mentioned, the way that it just kind of came out of nowhere, and also was a Friday afternoon drop, and the vagueness around certain things, and like what people are hearing behind closed doors, what we're hearing up front. For me, it reeks of a Microsoft directive. So Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO, has not really been the biggest supporter of Xbox in recent years, largely because he's more concerned with the AI push, which is like a whole thing. But yeah, like you said, Microsoft is just very much pushing into that direction, like a lot of tech companies. And I think Xbox had spent too much money on acquisitions, $69 billion on Activision Blizzard, $7 billion on Bethesda, and then all the other studio purchases. And it was time to like pay the dues.
It's a return on this investment.
Exactly. And it didn't really, I don't think it happened. I think 69 billion was far too much for Activision Blizzard. I think long term there's potential to make that back, but on Microsoft's terms, in no world, I don't think Xbox is going to do anything with that. And so I think it came down to like, I've heard that Phil was eyeing retirement, not necessarily like ready to do it this week or whatever, but it was in the works. But then this felt kind of like a, hey, you're done. Do you want to retire? Wink, wink, and go out gracefully. He sounds like he said yes. I think we all assumed Sarah Bond was the heir apparent to Xbox, considering She has been Spencer's right-hand man. She's been right-hand woman, been doing everything Xbox specific in terms of messaging and stuff, while Phil's been very Microsoft gaming CEO. And then I'm guessing, this is pure speculation, that she was passed up, and rightfully so was like, nah, screw that. I'm out then. Like, I just put in so much work for this role. I'm the clear choice for it, and you're gonna like overstep me for this gaming newcomer. You know, she hasn't worked at Xbox. She was Microsoft core AI lead. And now she's the CEO of Xbox, as you know, the whole situation in Microsoft gaming. And I think it's awesome that Bond, if this is what happened, I think it's cool that Bond left. Like, I think that's probably a tough move, but the right thing to do in a situation like this. As far as the new CEO goes, she is speaking very vaguely. She has been saying things that I think a lot of core Xbox fans like, in terms of, you know, getting back to the core of Xbox. There's a lot of speculation based on her statements that the exclusivity might come back to Xbox, which will be an interesting wrinkle to watch play out, because I do think that might be a helpful move for the Xbox fan base, but for Microsoft's need of money, I don't know if that works. I think you do need to have your games elsewhere. And also, as part of acquiring Activision Blizzard, they have to put Call of Duty, at the very least, on Switch 2 for the next decade, I think, if I recall correctly. Yeah. So like, you can't
a long-term contract.
You cannot renege on that. Like, that was part of being able for this acquisition to go through with the FTC, was like agreeing to that. And so that'll be an interesting wrinkle.
Also, Sarah Bond was instrumental in getting that through the FTC as well, because like she was having meetings seemingly weekly with the FTC, probably more frequently than that, to try to push that deal through. And whatever you want to say about like the outgoing Xbox leadership, Phil was always extremely personable. He was very clued in. He's a true like fan of gaming. I've looked at his Xbox profile. He plays a lot of games, and Sarah is very, very smart in like business terms, especially like,
absolutely.
I've only talked with her once, and it was in an informal setting. So it wasn't even like an interview. It was just at a mixer. I chatted with her for a couple of minutes, and very, very smart. And, you know, from what we could see, great at what she does. I know there's some reporting that maybe there were some other opinions behind the scenes on some of the moves that she's made, but I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on this news.
Yeah, on the AI thing too. Like, I think it was, I guess, refreshing to see the new CEO. Is it Sasha or Asha? Asha. Come out and say we don't want to like use soulless AI slop. Okay, but like, so like, what does that mean? Like, we'll use good AI, and then it's like, is there such a thing? It's like, that's a whole conversation. And also, like, respectively, you come from an AI background, you work for Microsoft. Microsoft is pushing AI hard. I don't know if I buy it. Like, I don't know. It's the right thing to say whenever you transition into a new role like this, but 6 months down the road, I could easily see like AI is helping our developers do things they never thought possible type video come out. Like, it's I don't know. And again, these are executives. Like, you take it with a grain of salt. Ultimately, their job is to make the company they work for money. It's not to please fans. Obviously, pleasing fans is how you typically get money. But at the end of the day, if Microsoft is like, AI needs to happen, and here's why, then like, I don't think she's going to push back on that. So that's something to watch for. Something I'm nervous about, ultimately, because I think Xbox disappearing or going away as a console maker is not good news for anybody, really. It's that opens the gate for PlayStation to be the lead, basically, because PlayStation isn't really competing with Nintendo and vice versa. And if PlayStation doesn't have competition on their front, then I mean, that's a whole nother story. We're already seeing ways that PlayStation is messing things up with their fan base and with their decisions.
Most notably, recently closing Bluepoint, which did the Shadow of the Colossus remake and the Demon Souls remake. So that was other news out of last week that we haven't covered. But like, yeah, it was like this Xbox news. Like, PlayStation finally made like this big misstep that everybody was upset about, and that was like less than 48 hours later, this Microsoft news comes out, and it's like all the focus is right back on how Microsoft is fumbling this generation, and
Xbox
everybody forgot about PlayStation closing a beloved studio.
Yeah, no, it's a shame. I mean, honestly, it's like none of it's really surprising though. This industry has been, ever since COVID, really, the COVID boom happened, and these executives thought people were going to game as if they're stuck indoors all day forever, and that's not the case. You know, people had lives open back up again, and we can go outside, and still a lot of gamers, but maybe not 2020 numbers. And for whatever reason, investors and executives don't understand the ebb and flow of hobbies. They just think number needs to go up all the time, and you can see that everywhere in our industry, not just Xbox, not just Nintendo or PlayStation. It's in indies, it's everywhere. And this is unsurprising but unsettling news nonetheless.
Yeah, I just wish that we could get to a place where having a successful company that provides a livelihood to thousands, if not tens or hundreds of thousands of people in the case of something like Microsoft, is enough to signal that you are a well-run business and a net positive to have in society, rather than just laying waste to people's lives and financial situations in the name of increasing shareholder value. That's just, we're not in a great place with regards to that. And I don't know what the solution is at this point, because it's just kind of the system that we're trapped in. But the games industry in particular has been hit extraordinarily hard in that regard.
Yeah, 100%.
But, all right. Well, that was completely unplanned and no information that I had in the outline regarding that. But, I think it's worthwhile to bring up, given that Xbox has been intertwined with Nintendo more so than it ever has been under that previous leadership. So you can go to GameInformer.com and check out full reporting of that situation. And if anything big comes out regarding that, I'll still touch on it in future episodes of this podcast.
Disney Plus wants to know, are you ready? For Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts, The New Avengers, now streaming on Disney Plus.
Let's do this.
One of the best Marvel movies of all time is now streaming on Disney Plus.
Hey, you weren't listening to me.
I said Thunderbolts, The New Avengers is now streaming on Disney Plus.
Meet the New Avengers.
That's cool name.
Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts, The New Avengers, rated PG-13, now streaming on, you guessed it, Disney Plus.
But Wes, we have actual Nintendo news to talk about. Nothing substantial, just a few quick hit things before we get into your review of Resident Evil Requiem here at the end of this segment. But last week, I think the biggest rant that I went on during the news segment was about Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, where I said that it was a terrible name, first of all, but it was more so a little bit frustrating that Nintendo is charging $5 just to make what was purported as a definitive edition better, which, defeats the purpose of it being called Definitive Edition. Well, it turns out that it might be an even worse situation than I thought, because I read this article over on Nintendo Life, and apparently some fans are requesting refunds on the Switch 2 upgrade because the textures are just not up to par. And it has issues involving shimmering and enemy shadows, kind of spark, not looking good. To the point that some actually are saying it looks worse than the Switch 1 version. And some people on Reddit are saying it looks worse than the Wii U version, which I don't know how accurate that is.
Come on now. Yeah.
I think that might be a little hyperbolic in the world of Reddit. But according to Nintendo Life, that when docked, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition Nintendo Switch 2 Edition does run pretty well at 60 frames per second. But it's just why is Nintendo charging $5 for a Switch 2 upgrade that only boosts performance in the first place? And then you add on to the fact that it just doesn't seem like it even does what it says it's going to do. Why would they not avoid getting even more negative attention and just not making this a free update?
It's such a niche game too. It's one of the last remaining Wii U exclusives that they finally brought over to the Switch generation. I know people love Xenoblade, but Xenoblade is not the biggest franchise. And then Xenoblade Chronicles X which is a spin-off-esque title of that franchise, is even smaller, and it's kind of ridiculous to charge $5. And then also, if you're going to charge $5, have some quality assurance or something that like, did anybody check it? I've seen these like side by sides and it's very apparent. And the fact that Nintendo is giving people refunds, I've seen some refund success on Reddit, is also a big deal because typically any of these gaming companies don't really do that. Like it's one, I know like if PlayStation, if you request a refund, you can get it, but you might like lose your account forever, which is wild. Like it's Nintendo's aware of it, and but it's like you said, like why wouldn't you guys just get ahead of this by not charging for it? Or if you're going to charge for it, make sure it's like worth $5. Sure, maybe that's a coffee or 2 candy bars, but it's also like it's my money. Like if I'm going to spend my money, I want a product that has the Nintendo seal of quality on it that they literally used to put on games, and now they just kind of spit this out. I wonder, I don't know how this happened, but it sucks.
Yeah, and like the parallels I drew to it last week was that like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet needed a Switch 2 edition, and I think that they could not possibly charge money for that because it's like, hey, you can make it so it runs how it should have run, all these years ago. But then you look at things like Mario Odyssey. That's a much more popular game that got a free upgrade to like better frame rate and stuff like that, or better resolution. And then like you look at Animal Crossing New Horizons, an exponentially more popular game that charged $5 for a Switch 2 upgrade, but it also added like multiplayer features and more content. And then you look at something that I think this is the best parallel here, because not only is it a definitive edition, but it's one that came out about a year ago, which is when Xenoblade Chronicles X came out on Switch 1. That was Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, where people were underwhelmed by that version. So Nintendo put out a free update that not only made it so like the textures were better, the resolution was better, the frame rate was better, but it added a playable character as well, and that was free. And then you look at Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, and it doesn't do any of that stuff aside from resolution and frame rate, and it doesn't even do the resolution particularly well.
Yeah, it's a baffling decision from a company that is very good with being weird about these decisions.
Yeah, especially when it seems like it wasn't a very good upgrade to begin with. So it's like, I understand if you started development on this upgrade with like the idea that you would charge $5, but why would you not either A, pivot to make it free when you see that it's not the best upgrade, or B, delay it? Like nobody was like, oh god, I have this date circled on my calendar because Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, Nintendo Switch 2 edition is coming out. It's like, no, this was a surprise launch. You could have launched this 2 months from now and people would have been just as happy or just as upset if if it was $5. So I don't know, it just feels like such an own goal that to bring sports back into this, to do this. I don't know. It's a baffling decision all around, and now made even more baffling by the fact that it turns out it wasn't even the greatest patch.
Yep, very whack.
All right, Wes. Well, the next topic of discussion, I want to ask you, where are you at with the Nier franchise?
The Nier franchise, I don't even talk about the Nier franchise because it makes people that like Nier mad, but I've only played Automata, and I liked it. It was great. I just didn't get the mind-altering, life-changing experience that a lot of people get from it. Although I do think the music in that game is mind-altering and life-changing. But it wasn't for me, I guess.
Yeah, I think that I'm closer to you than I am other folks on the topic of Nier Automata. And I was like, okay, well, not every game is going to be for every person, and I'm happy that people like it more than I do. And I'm bummed that I don't see the same level of beauty that other people see in it. But like, I actively did not like the first Nier when it originally came out, and then Nier Automata I enjoy, just not to the level that everybody else like praises it. But we have some news out of this franchise, because last week we seemingly randomly got a video for Nier Automata's 9th anniversary, and they announced the game has sold more than 10 million copies, which that's a huge number, but I don't think it's that surprising given the amount of praise and the amount of re-releases that they've done for this game. But then at the end of this video, they said, quote, Nier Automata to be continued, ... Now, that's all we have. That's all the information that we have from Square Enix. And Wes, this could mean literally anything.
Yeah.
But as Game Informer's main news hound, how did you take that information?
So I go a couple ways. Yoko Taro, the lead behind the game, is a bit of a troll. So this could be merchandise or something trolly like that. I don't think it's that. I think the thing that I could see most likely happening is maybe a new ending added to the game. The thing that's weird is Nier Automata to be continued specifically. It wasn't Nier to be continued. It was Automata. So my mind's trying to stay in the headspace of that game. And given that game has so many endings and like 4 or 5 main endings, I think adding another one could be an option. I would like to think they're working on a sequel, but Yoko Taro also announced this week, the same week, because he's a troll, that he is writing a new Neon Evangelion anime. And I don't suspect writing an anime, like making an anime and making a game, are two easy things to do together. And he seems way more stoked about this Neon Evangelion announcement based on his Twitter activity than this Nier tease. So I don't know. I think I would just say temper expectations. This is probably going to be exclusive anniversary merch, maybe extended concert series, maybe another ending or some DLC. But like, do I see a Nier 3? Which technically Nier 3 people consider Nier Reincarnation, which is the mobile game that is now shut down. So maybe Nier 4. I don't know. I would not place my bets on like a Nier sequel. I think the next thing that they should do with Square Enix IP is, especially after the success of Octopath Traveler 0 last year, which took a mobile Octopath game and turned it into a single player offline RPG for Switch 2. I think they should do that with Nier Reincarnation, the mobile game that is unplayable now, that has a lot of significant story elements. Take it, turn it into a Nier 3 single player RPG, and keep that series alive with, I don't want to say little effort, but the story's there and a lot of people did not experience it. So something like that. But do I think a Nier Automata 2 is in our future? I do not. Not anytime soon, at least.
I think that is the second most likely outcome. I think the most likely is some sort of DLC or content update for Nier Automata. But like, I don't know, the fact that they were so cryptic and like gave it like a little bit of weight at the end of this like video that they put out for the anniversary tells me that it's more substantial than like, hey, we're putting out a comic book that is going to explain this one part of the lore. Like, I feel like there's got to be something in game. Like, it's not going to, I don't think it's going to be merchandise. Maybe merchandise will coincide with whatever it ends up being, but like, because, you know, there is a decent amount of Nier Automata merchandise. But like, I don't know. I think if Summer Game Fest, for example, rolls around and we get the announcement of Nier Automata 2, I think the internet would collectively lose its mind. Like, that would be like the only things that I think Square Enix could announce that would get more excitement than Nier Automata 2 would be Final Fantasy VII's like third entry in the remake trilogy, or like show more footage or more concrete stuff of Kingdom Hearts 4. Like, I think those are the only things. Happening. I mean, you never know, because like Kingdom Hearts 4's announcement, I remember, came kind of out of nowhere, and everybody's like, wait, what? Like, I thought that we were done with this for a while.
7 years ago now, right?
Oh my God, was it that long ago? I still
remember.
Was
that when Kingdom Hearts 3 came out? It was 2019, maybe.
I think that was when Kingdom Hearts 3, because I think I wrote Game Informer's coverage of Kingdom Hearts 4. Let's see here. Now we're getting way off topic, but Kingdom Hearts 4. I wrote the last news story was actually 2025. We got some screenshots. I forgot about that. Yeah. But it was originally announced in 2022 during a 20th anniversary trailer. So Square Enix does like doing things on these anniversaries. Unlike Nintendo, apparently, because it doesn't seem like we're getting anything for the Zelda anniversary. But we'll have to wait and see if Square Enix gives us any news in the future. But we'll talk about it on this podcast, as I always say. But for reference, Nier Automata originally came out in 2017. I believe it was just on PlayStation and maybe PC, but it eventually made its way to all platforms, including Switch in 2022. So if you somehow missed when it came out originally, you can play it pretty much wherever you like to do your gaming.
Yeah.
It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.
And the final piece of news that we will cover in this first segment, Wes, I don't know that I've really talked about it on the show too much or really at all, but there's a game that was scheduled to come out this month called Mouse PI for Hire. Wes, how familiar are you with this game?
I'm very familiar. It's one I've been keeping on my radar for a while. It's the art style is really the eye catcher here. It's like a tube or hose animation or something like that. There's
It's whatever,
a word
like
for,
what kind of like the old school Disney style of animation, where it was like
Willie old
Steamboat
school.
Willie style. Yeah.
And it's a first person shooter. It's like a boomer shooter, and it looks awesome. It has Troy Baker voicing the main character, and he's like a detective noir dude. Lot to love in this game, although I don't think many people have gone hands on with it, which is still a little worrying because like that's always something, but it could mean nothing. But that said, it is a game I've been excited for a minute.
Yeah, so it's noir inspired, old school Disney inspired first person shooter, has a full single player campaign. I believe it's only a single player game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any multiplayer, but I saw there's like more than 20 levels in the campaign, so it's pretty substantial in that regard.
Rubber hose animation is what I was trying to say.
Rubber hose, okay.
Rubber
You
hose.
play as a character named Jack Pepper. Great name for a mouse detective, in case you need more connection to the Disney inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
Puzzles to solve. You like scour an area to find clues for whatever case you're working, and then combat sections that involve guns, melee weapons, gadgets, stuff like that. It looks very promising. I think that a lot of people have been very high on the hypeometer for this one. Well, it was originally scheduled to come out next month, but it has been pushed to April 16th. So the development team can, quote, take the extra time and care needed to make Mouse PI for Hire an experience to remember. So I would say that like on this podcast, we're generally always in favor of delaying a game if it's going to make it better. And thankfully, this isn't a very long delay. And I know like some people see delays like this as kind of like a red flag to signal development problems. But I think this in isolation is definitely more of a green flag.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a multi-platform release. It could have been as simple as like a bug happened during cert on PS5 that didn't allow it to go gold or whatever. It's like there's really these days there's no sense in looking into a delay like this, or even like a 6-month delay. Like GTA 6 got delayed by a lot, and no one's like, oh, the game's in trouble. It's just like, well, they're gonna take the time they want, and so be it.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mouse PI for Hire now arrives on Switch 2 and every other major platform on April 16th. Wes, we have a game that we don't have to wait any longer for. No waiting till April 16th for this one. It is out right now as people are listening to this episode. Resident Evil Requiem. It is the third Resident Evil game kind of in this style of like Resident Evil games. The series has kind of gone through these different eras. A lot of series they transition. Like we've seen it with Mario, we've seen it with Sonic, where it starts in a very specific way, then it kind of evolves to this other era. Then we see maybe even another era altogether there. Resident Evil has gone through like that classic style with the tank controls and like very, very survival horror style. Then you get to something like Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6, where it's more action than it is survival horror. And then starting with Resident Evil 7 Biohazard into Resident Evil Village and now Resident Evil Requiem, it's kind of like this more immersive horror facing, but also a fair share of action. Before we jump into Resident Evil Requiem specifically, how have you felt about this era of Resident Evil?
I have really, really enjoyed it. I think the biggest change from 1 through 6 to 7 back in 2017 was the first person perspective, which I think on paper is not the biggest change ever, but when you're in horror, it's a huge change going from third person, which you feel a little more uh, almost like godlike, like you're like watching what's happening, to first person, where it's like it is happening to me. I am now in this horror maze, and I think that has been a really strong thing that Capcom capitalized on. I think it was super important. It's hard to imagine now, because Resident Evil, especially, and just Capcom in general, has been kicking so much butt over the past decade. But like Resident Evil 6 came out, and mixed reviews, whatever you want to say, but that game was an action game, and people that wanted what Resident Evil started as felt a little slighted by it. And then Resident Evil 7 came out and very much like revitalized Resident Evil as like a household horror name that wasn't something to laugh at or make fun of because of movies or the bombastic stuff happening in 6. I thoroughly enjoyed 7 as somebody who watched movies like Wrong Turn and The Hills Have Eyes far too early, and who has family in Louisiana. Louisiana Swamp House with a cannibal family was very terrifying. And then 8, obviously Village is kind of Capcom's, I don't want to say reinvention, but like a new take on the Resident Evil 4 vibe of horror, like that the Village vibe, the almost like Universal Pictures monsters, vampires, werewolves, that kind of thing. And I liked it. Both 7 and 8 and a lot of the games in the franchise. The biggest problem for me in Resident Evil, which I love these games, like even the bad ones I love, that first half is always 99% of the time stronger than the second half. And I think that is a problem that has persisted through Resident Evil all the way up to 8. As much as I love 7 and 8, the first half of 7 is so much more interesting than the second half. The first Village is kind of split up into 4 parts. The first 2 parts are so much more interesting than the second 2 parts. Finally, with Requiem, we have a game that I love all the way through, and my feelings don't really drop at all in there. There's no really low point. It is just the first half rules, the second half rules. I'm getting the action I want out of Resident Evil. I'm getting the survival horror I want out of Resident Evil. As I put in my review, Requiem to me is Resident Evil at its finest in 2026. Maybe at one point Resident Evil was a strictly horror franchise, although I would probably disagree with that sentiment, considering even Resident Evil 1 gets pretty wacky. And then Resident Evil lost its horror touch a bit and became just like an action franchise with like 5 and 6. And so Resident Evil, love it or hate it, is a action survival horror hybrid franchise. And I think Requiem is far and away the best they've ever done with that formula, and mixing and matching that into something that feels like a perfect refinement of this franchise.
So you said it's Resident Evil at its finest. I'm assuming that means this is your favorite Resident Evil game of all time now. What was your favorite prior to this?
Probably 2. I know
the remake or the original.
I would say the remake. I mean, the originals have their place, but the thing that kind of sucks about gaming over other mediums is like things age in a way where it doesn't necessarily feel good on sticks anymore. And I think Resident Evil 2 was a perfect like remake of that original game. I loved it. 2 is my favorite. I know 4 is kind of like the love child of fans, but I've just always enjoyed 2. I like being a little more scared in Resident Evil, which I think 2 provided, whereas 4 is just kind of kicking butt the whole time. So I would say, and playing through Resident Evil Requiem early on, I'm like, this is cooking. This has the chance to be my favorite. Let's see what happens. And when I rolled credits, it wasn't even like a question. It wasn't like, well, let me sit on it and see if I like it more than 2 or 4, this or that. It was like, with a bullet, my favorite Resident Evil. It wasn't even like a conversation I needed to have. I adore this game.
So you talk a lot about how the game itself kind of gives nods to the series past. Do you think that somebody who doesn't have that knowledge necessarily could enjoy it as much as you do?
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't. I think like thematically that stuff elevates it a bit for me, but like when you take it at face value, um, you're still getting like some incredible gameplay and some incredible set pieces and story moments that are like just crazy. I think if you're someone who's like, is this a Resident Evil that does not get goofy and schlocky and excessive? This is not that. That is not Resident Evil, frankly. Resident Evil is goofy and schlocky and over the top and corny and sincere and all these things. That's why people love Resident Evil. We don't bemoan Leon every time he does a one-liner. We smile and we laugh at it because they're stupid and they rule. I don't think people are asking for that to be removed from their franchise. And so, yeah, I think there are moments where if you are very familiar with the series history, it will, some people might say fan service, and to an extent it is because it's the very existence of certain things implies fan service. But for me, there's a very a smart hand at Capcom using the familiarities of the series' past, using what others might call fan service to dive a little deeper into the head of Leon, or maybe tease where Grace's story is going in the future, or just kind of like remind you what Resident Evil is. Like it was never, I never groaned at some of the nods and stuff like that. Which, if I'm being vague, I'm doing it on purpose because there's a lot I don't want to spoil. Sorry if you hate the vagueness, but I'm sure you appreciate me not spoiling stuff too. Yeah, I think it's very smart nods, and I think there's some stuff that people are really going to love seeing again.
Now, because this is a very Switch specific question, I know you reviewed it on PlayStation, but the Switch did not have Resident Evil 7 or Village natively anyway. It had the cloud versions, but I have a feeling that a lot of people just opted not to play those versions rather than use the cloud versions.
Yeah.
How important is it to have played 7 and Village? Because those have not been available natively until till today, when Capcom was like, let's just put the entire like current era of Resident Evil on the exact same day to completely overwhelm people on Switch 2. Like, how important is it that people who are like, hey, I really want to play this game, do they need to play 7? Do they need to play Village in order to get like into this game, Requiem?
That's a tricky question. Do you need to? No, not really at all. 7 and 8, Capcom has told me in interviews like they are a duology separate from 9. I mean, all these games. Something I love about Resident Evil is Capcom has never rebooted its crazy story. It has gone to some wild places, and not once have they ever hidden behind the easy reboot. They have figured out ways to retool their story and gather up all these viruses and keep them intact. So yes, 7 and 8 do have like a place in this wider story, but like, do you need to play it? Are you going to feel lost in Requiem? You won't feel lost even the slightest, like at all. That said, I almost recommend playing 7 and 8 if you haven't played them before, because if you play Requiem and then go back, you're going to be like downgrading. It's going to feel lesser, which is not great. I think ideally, like if somebody is asking for like how to play these games that have never been on Switch, I think you should start with 7, then play 8, then play 9, so that you get to build up to what is the best Resident Evil, in my opinion. If we're talking what Resident Evils you need to play beforehand, I think very explicitly you should probably play 2 and 4 and...
Don't say 6. Don't say 6. Don't say 6.
No.
I just know that Leon is in that as well.
No, I would honestly say like really 2 is, if you've only got time for 1, just 2. But like I think 4 is important, not necessarily narratively, but thematically and what that game is, because the Leon in 2 and the Leon in 4 is vastly different. And this will kind of tie me into more thoughts on this review I have, but the Leon in Resident Evil Requiem is the Leon from Resident Evil 4 and to an extent 6, in the sense that like Leon sections in this game, it is very much the call an ambulance, but not for me meme. Like everyone, these zombies, these creatures are locked in places with Leon, because he has no fear. He has all kinds of guns and weapons and capabilities. He will roundhouse kick zombies into the walls. He will shove chainsaws into their gullets. Like, Leon is the superhero action figure here in this game. And I think it rules. And it's not like 6 though. It's not where it's like over the top, almost like third person Call of Duty-esque. This is it feels way better. It feels quite grounded. I would say Requiem is probably one of the most grounded Resident Evil games in the series. And it's very important that Leon is that way, because Grace's sections are capturing the vibe of Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 7 and 8 more, in the sense that Grace defaults to first person. You can, of course, switch to third person if you want a little bit less terrifying experience, but I recommend first. And her sections are all about horror. Like, she is an FBI agent whose job typically entails sitting behind a computer desk and solving cases. She is not an action hero. I don't think she's ever killed anything before she shoots her first zombie in this game. And that really comes through in her character. And something I have been giving props to Capcom for is that Grace is not a damsel in distress woman who is going through the events of Resident Evil Requiem. She is just a girl, a woman who is terrified of what is happening, but she is still capable and deft and able to kill zombies. She's just also finally the most real protagonist ever, in the sense that she's like, what the heck is going on? I cannot believe what I have to do to survive. This is ridiculous. And it's awesome. It's very refreshing for somebody to be like, this is insane. Why? Like, no. And she has, in terms of gameplay, her sections are more akin to the Raccoon City Police Department of Resident Evil 2, where it's like, you're in this setting and you're going to be here for a couple hours because you need to solve inexplicable puzzles involving gyms or batteries or just like mundane objects that for some reason are spread throughout an area, and you're going to come across all kind of foes in order to get that stuff. And the thing that makes Requiem work so well, and the thing that easily could have tanked Requiem, is the balance between Grace, Ashcroft, Leon.
That's actually what I wanted to get into next. I was curious because I remember in like early previews, it was like, this seems pretty balanced, like between like Leon and Grace, and like it feels like just as like you are starting to get a little bit tired of Leon's section or his style of gameplay, it switches to Grace, and then vice versa. And I think that like our early sentiment was like, the success of this game is really going to come down to how well these segments are balanced. And talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was somebody here at Game Informer that was saying the same thing. Like, that balance is going to be so key. That balance is what has made the second halves of Resident Evils so much lesser than for me. It's because you have these incredibly terrifying first halves. I'm thinking of like Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 2. And then the second halves are just you get a little too shooty and a little too actiony and a little like, where'd the horror that I was enjoying going? And
Chris Redfield comes out and punches a boulder.
Yeah, exactly. Jesus. And I think this game is like, with a like fine tooth comb, like Grace section happens. You're scared. You're going through it. It's horrific. You're doing a lot of first person puzzle solving and shooting. And then right when your hands are like just a little too sweaty and you're just a little too tense and you're ready for a break, the game switches you to Leon, and it's like, release that tension, go kill stuff, and feel like super awesome doing it. Like, you just feel so empowered as Leon, and it's like, oh, thank God, this finally, I have a release to destroy these zombies that have been plaguing me as Grace. And then whenever you're like, all right, this is getting a little over the top, this is kind of getting ridiculous, you'll finish that set piece, and then boom, we're back to Grace. And Grace is, you got the first person gun, her hands are shaking, she's once again wondering how the heck she ended up in this terrible day of work that she's having. And for me, that balance was like straight down the line all the way through, in a way that like not once was I ever felt like something was getting too long. Every time in my head where I'm like, okay, I think it's about time to switch to Leon, or vice versa, sure enough, like I'd shoot a zombie, a cutscene would start, and we'd swap. And that's something that I think that Requiem does so well. And then like on top of that balance, I think the actual gameplay, like I cannot sing praises enough about it. It feels so good. It is such a fun game. I was mad every time I wasn't playing it because I just wanted to play it. Like, it's a game I'm going to be playing over and over again. There's already like a trophy to beat the game under 4 hours, and I don't even know how that's possible. But I've seen people do it in 2 hours. I don't get it because I took like probably 12 to 15 hours on my first playthrough. And that's what Resident Evil is about. It's about min-maxing your runs and like having fun with some post-game stuff. But I'm like, I don't get how people do that, but I'm so excited to try to figure it out.
I have fallen off the Resident Evil wagon so hard. Like I respect the heck out of this current era. I think that Village really sunk its hooks into me early, but then I fell off and I never got around to playing, or I'm sorry, 7 sunk its hooks into me. I never got around to playing Village. And I'm eyeing Requiem, kind of like, this looks like the one I should try. Like, I love 2. I never played the 3 remake. I like 4, and I played 5 a lot in college just because it was a great co-op game with my roommate. But yeah, like, I don't know, like, I just haven't finished 7. I haven't played Village at all. And then Requiem just sounds so freaking good that it makes me want to kind of start this, like, even though they call it a duology between 7 and Village, like this trilogy of like modern era Resident Evil games and just play all the way through now, especially now that they're all on Switch 2 as of today. But it's like, man, that's a lot of game. That's a lot of game ahead of me.
Village is like, you could play Village kind of whenever. It does take place after 7, obviously, and it's Ethan Winters is the protagonist, but like the goals of Village narratively are almost prequel-esque. Like, you don't really need to understand what happens in Village to feel confident going into Requiem. Like, you really can just jump into Requiem. And honestly, even if you don't play anything else, like, Requiem will still mostly work. There are they have shown it in trailers. Like, you go back to Raccoon City, and obviously if you know Resident Evil, Raccoon City is the heart of all this stuff that happens in the series, and it's kind of a big deal for Leon to go back there. And I think that that's like something you might be missing, like the weight of that. But the game does a pretty good job of like showing and explaining why this is like a big deal. There are nods and things and quotes and things that Leon will say and do that you'll be like, that must be related to Resident Evil 2. But it's not going to affect your enjoyment. I think if this was my first Resident Evil game, I still would have given it a 9.75. Like, It is just in the back of my head, like, I kind of want to get back to my next run of Requiem. And I think that's, I adore this game.
Well, if you want to read Wes's 9.75 out of 10 review over on GameInformer.com, that's the place you can do it.
Yeah, and go watch the video review too.
Yes, there is a video review of this, courtesy of our wonderful video department, Alex Van Aken and Eric Van Allen. I don't know why they both have Van in their last name. That's a weird thing. It's almost as weird as when they were both named Alex, back when Alex Stadnick, friend of the show, was... It's a requirement here at GI. There has to be some... has to be some weird naming thing. Back when I joined Game Informer, I think there were 4 Matts and 2 Bens and 2 Brians and... Yeah.
When I joined in 2021, everyone went by their last names, and I was like, "What? Why are we doing this?"
Yeah, that's why people still to this day on the Game Informer staff call me Shay.
Yeah,
and like past Game Informer people, because when I joined, there were 2 Brians. So yeah. Well, Resident Evil Requiem alongside Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, and Resident Evil Village are available now on Switch 2 as well as every other major platform. Go ahead.
There's also, for the first time ever, Resident Evil Amiibo for the Switch 2 version. Right. Leon and Grace, which is, I haven't seen them in person yet. I might try to go find them this weekend, but very cool. There's also a not as great Pro controller for Requiem as well, but whatever. The Amiibos look awesome.
And also, if you are curious about the Switch 2 version in particular, I did, while I was over on Nintendo Live reading that other article, I did say, I wonder what they say about the performance of this. And it seems like their review was very much like, this is a great version of this game. That said, like, the hair doesn't look as good and the textures are a little bit muddier than like a PS5 version of this game, but it seems like it runs pretty well regardless. And like, other than those
handheld,
things,
I bet it looks I bet you don't even notice the hair and the textures, to be honest. I find that Switch ports or Switch versions, they look their worst when blown up on a screen, but on a handheld, it's like I'm going to pick up probably all 3 of these games on Switch too, because I just want to have them for planes and stuff.
For sure. Well, Wes, thank you so much for joining me for this segment of All Things Nintendo, talking about the news, talking about Resident Evil Requiem. Where should people look for you if they want to find you online?
You can find me on Blue Sky. That's my primary place of posting at Wesley LeBlanc. And you can read my work at GameInformer.com, and you can hear my voice on Game Informer's YouTube channel, such as the Resident Evil Requiem review or the latest GI show, which you can hear more thoughts on Requiem, similar to what I've said here. But yeah, you can listen to myself and others on the staff talk about Requiem there too.
Well, you hear that music playing in the background right now. You know what that means. We are going to take our only break of this episode. And when we return, we will be talking all about the news that came out of the Pokemon 30th Anniversary Pokemon Presents live stream. We will be right back with that.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
We are back, and we have a bunch of Pokemon-related news to discuss thanks to this year's Pokémon Day Pokémon Presents live stream. And joining me for this main segment is youngster Ben Richlin. Ben, do you like shorts because they're comfy and easy to wear?
No, but my Rattata is in its top tier. It's in the top tier of... That's one of the things. Yeah.
Very funny because that was actually the other one that I was going to throw at you was the Rattata. So I'm glad that you pivoted and were knowledgeable enough to make that jump over there. But Ben, how are you doing?
I'm okay. I just got back from vacation and then brought back a cold, and now we're settled into this Pokemon Presents.
Yeah, so Pokemon Day, today, as we are recording this and as a lot of people are listening to this episode, is the 30th anniversary of this franchise, which means, it has been around 3 full decades, and not Nintendo so much, but the Pokemon Company is celebrating that milestone as they always do with a Pokemon Presents live stream. And actually the festivities kicked off a full week early, because last Friday, we learned that the rumors were, in fact, true. To celebrate the 30th anniversary of Pokemon, the Pokemon Company, and I guess Nintendo alongside them, announced Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen coming to Switch and Switch 2. And as you are listening to this episode, they are out right now. They are $20 a piece, which is a little pricey, but not terrible. It could have been worse. And one word of caution, though, there are multiple versions of each version because you have to make sure you buy the correct language, because I guess they couldn't just have it be an option in the menu, because that would be too much work to combine multiple versions of Pokemon in one game.
Actually crazy.
Well,
just
hey, just make
strange.
sure, triple check when you go to buy these on the eShop that it says the version of the game that you want. It says it on the box art. It said English only when I bought my copy of FireRed. But if you're unfamiliar with FireRed and LeafGreen, these are the Game Boy Advance remakes of Pokemon Red and Blue, which were originally Game Boy games, like the original Game Boy games. So there's a pretty substantial graphical leap forward. We go all the way up to, 16-bit on Game Boy Advance?
Yep.
And other changes as well, like being able to choose if you want to play as a boy or a girl. Some Pokemon have been moved to different locations, and then newer TMs that were introduced after Red and Blue are in these versions. But I would say the biggest change outside of the graphical update is that there is a whole post-game where you go to the Sevi Islands and you can find Pokemon from Gen 2 and 3. So, Ben, these are among my favorite Pokemon releases ever, and were basically kind of my first reintroduction into the series after about 6 years away, because I remember I was like sophomore year in college or so, I was starting to get the itch that like I miss Pokemon.
Yeah.
I want to get back into. There's too many Pokemon now. I don't want to like jump in and have like 400 Pokemon that I just don't know who they are. I wish there was a game that was just the original 151. And my friend in college was like, "Hey, there actually is a Game Boy Advance remake of Pokemon Red and Blue, and it's just the original 151. You have to beat the game before the what he said, the stupid ones come in." So
what people call the replacements. Sure. Yeah.
So I jumped back into that and I was like, this is exactly what I was wanting. And then from there, I got fully back into it with Pokemon X and Y, but like, FireRed and LeafGreen were kind of me dipping my toe back into the pool. Where did the remakes hold in your heart? Like what place do the remakes hold for you?
I think that this is actually, they came out on the 10th anniversary of the franchise. So this is like the 20th anniversary of those specific games. I have very fond memories of these games. I loved them. They came out when I was a junior in high school. And I remember when they came out, they had the GBA adapter, the Wi-Fi adapter to basically do like instant message and trading on your Game Boy Advance. It was very interesting. But yeah, I thought that they were a lot of fun. I really liked the whole like advanced era of Pokemon. So like, I mean, I played the hell out of Ruby and Sapphire and Emerald, and then I think Emerald came out actually after FireRed and LeafGreen. But yeah, no, FireRed and LeafGreen were an absolute blast. I guess I really liked the Sevi Islands, and I liked all the bonus stuff that they added. But I guess I'm a little surprised, but not surprised at the $20 price point.
Really?
I don't know. I mean, like, I guess like it's just an eye roll, right? That's I guess like at first blush, you're looking at it and you're like, these games were like $30 back in the day, and now you're charging $20 for a game that's 20 years old. What's the reasoning here? Well, Pokemon's gonna Pokemon. Why are they not part of the virtual console?
Yeah, that's the big thing.
I can see two schools of thought. One, because there's transfer to Pokemon Home, and so like you're basically able to transfer Pokemon that you can use competitively, and that adds an extra wrinkle to it. Here's the other one. Who gives a shit? That shouldn't be a reason, but it is a reason. Like if I'm putting my brain into like the Pokemon company's thought process, that's probably why they were thinking of it in that way. But Pokemon's gonna Pokemon. Will I get the game? I haven't bought it yet. Can I mention about that they did mention this game during the Pokemon Presents, obviously. There's one thing I want to talk about for Pokemon Presents in regards to this game. I was surprised that they did not announce the DLC or like the event tickets to get like Lugia and Ho-Oh or Deoxys during this Pokemon Presents.
You think they're going to charge for that?
I don't like back in the day, you used to go to GameStop and you had to like insert your cartridge, or I'm pretty sure it was something like that. Or it was like a code or something. It was like a mystery gift something. I was surprised that they didn't do anything with that today. Do I think that they're going to charge for that? No, I don't think that they're going to charge for that. But I don't know, maybe they might do something to direct foot traffic to GameStop and all the other places, and you physically have to go somewhere in order to get them, which I think is also strange.
You have to take your Switch and just bash a cashier in the head with it.
Yeah, like this is what I don't know. Like I think I would have announced those things today.
I mean, it was an interesting way that they rolled this out. Also, just to fact check a little bit, it came out on the 8th year anniversary.
8th year. Okay.
To celebrate, because 1996 obviously was the year that
Right.
Pokemon came out. 2004 was when these remakes
Got it.
emerged.
Okay.
But yeah, like I don't know, like I think that they just wanted to get this news out. I'm surprised that there weren't more of these, but like I assumed that we
More
were
of
going to
what?
get like more classic games. Like I thought that the FireRed, LeafGreen were just going to be the start, and like maybe we would get something related to Gold and Silver, whether it was like a Heart Gold, Soul Silver, or the original Gold and Silver.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought we would get more classic games, but I guess
I do think that we are going to get some form of Heart Gold, Soul Silver, but I think that that's a harder thing to do because of the touch.
Yeah, single screen experience with the Switch.
And there's no DS games for the Switch yet, right? It's just GBA is part of the Virtual Console, and this isn't virtual. You know what I mean? But like, I think that eventually, Gold and Silver is the next step. I guess it's a little surprising that there's no Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, but Pokemon's gonna Pokemon. Pokemon's strange.
Yeah, well, I mean, Nintendo in general is always going to do whatever they want to do. It's not as predictable, I think, as other companies are.
No.
So I think that Pokemon is just an extension of that. I think these two companies are very difficult to pin down. I mean, unless you know where to look for Pokemon in particular, because there are a lot of leaks and everything that are out there, which, you know, impacted this stream as well if you were out looking for it. But yeah, Pokemon FireRed, LeafGreen available now, $20 a pop. Just make sure you buy the right language, because otherwise you're going to be having to do what a lot of us did in the 90s when we imported our games, and that is have a whatever language you buy to English dictionary.
Which one are you going to be playing?
FireRed.
And
I already got my copy.
And which starter are you going to pick?
I'm usually a Charmander guy, just because it's like kind of the game's like hard mode, but also I'm a Charizard fan, so I'm gonna be going with him. Every once in a while I'll mix it up with a Squirtle choice, but yeah, I don't know, maybe I'll do a Bulbasaur.
Are you gonna do a Nuzlocke? A self-imposed challenge? No?
Nah, I'll just I don't know. I like just playing through it the way the Lord intended. And by the Lord I mean Satoshi Tajiri.
Right. Yes.
Well, those are out now on Switch and Switch 2, $20 a pop. But that all happened before the Pokemon Presents. You know, we knew this was coming a full week before they hit the eShop. And Ben, I don't know about you, but when they announced FireRed and LeafGreen a full week before Pokemon Day, I started thinking like, oh man, this might be a huge Pokemon Presents when it hits next week.
Sure.
What was going through your mind? Were you thinking that like this was because they were going to have a huge presentation, or was it like, oh well, it leaked, so they just were like, let's get that out of the way now?
I kind of thought the same thing. I thought that it was going to be like a big presentation, that they were going to make a big announcement, that they didn't want this to steal that sort of thunder. Because even though that this game is a re-release, it is kind of a big deal, because it also just opens up the possibility for future re-releases. So I had the same train of thought. It was also 4 a.m, so mileage may vary.
Yeah. So let's get into the Pokemon Presents itself. It started with a bit of a strange note. We got a device shaped like the original Game Boy, obviously much smaller than the original Game Boy. We had Junichi Masuda on the screen holding it, and it was barely the size of his palm, so it's fairly small. And it comes with 45 cartridges that are, you know, they look like cartridges of Pokemon Red or Pokemon Blue, and each one plays a different song from the Red and Blue soundtrack. And when you put the cartridges in, they also display the visual context of whatever song they are playing on this device. And Masuda came on the screen, and he's the guy, in case you are not familiar, he's the guy who composed the first few games in the series. And today he kind of overlooks the franchise, like Shigeru Miyamoto overlooks a lot of Nintendo development. He overlooks a lot of the Pokemon development now.
He's also a director for a few.
Yeah, he's I think he started directing with Gen 3 and then directed all the way up through I want to say, was it Gen 5 was like when he directed, then he transitioned to producer?
That seems right.
And then Shigeru Omori has directed quite a few as well, but he's over there on Beast of Reincarnation, so it seems like we might, I brought this up on a past episode, but we might be getting some new blood in the Pokemon franchise, but that's neither here nor there. Masuda composed the first few games in the series before transitioning to the role of director, but he was talking about how they worked really hard to create a device that sounds as close to the original Game Boy as possible, which, if you're a purist and you like kind of the sound of the original Game Boy, that's appealing, I guess. It almost, I forget who it was that made the comparison. I think it might have been, somebody on the Game Informer staff. They said it was like hit clips. If you remember hit clips in the 90s, this is like hit clips for Pokemon, where it just plays a single song when you put it into this device. It's funny how we're kind of going the opposite direction that we've been trending for the past several years of making music listening as convenient as possible. And by that, it's a streaming service. It's either Spotify or Apple Music or whatever service you use. And now we're kind of like swinging back hard in the other direction, where it's like, I have a pretty robust vinyl collection, which is an extraordinarily inconvenient way to listen to music, but there's a certain novelty and certain warmth that you get that you don't get from the digital versions of these recordings. And I think that this is going to capture that same kind of feeling, and it's available for pre-order starting today. And I have to say, Ben, I went through the full range of emotions watching this reveal. I went from, what is this, to like, this is dumb. And then I went, actually, no, this is just weird. And then I ultimately landed on, I really hope I can get one. So where did you land on the Pokemon Red and Blue Game Boy Jukebox?
Are we done talking about this? This was the dumbest. Like,
you're not a fan.
This is like me, like in terms of like the things that I collect and like figurines and Legos.
Yeah, I thought you might be into this because you like your collecting.
Yeah, I do. This is the biggest waste of plastic I've ever seen.
Wow.
Like, this is just like I'm so turned off by this very stupid thing.
All right.
I have nothing good to say. I award no points. May God have mercy on your soul.
It is, as of now, still not available for pre-order, but I'm sure by the time this episode hits.
What's the price going to be?
I have no idea. That is actually
they didn't
a very
say that
good
in the
question.
press release? Okay.
I don't think so. Let me see if it is anywhere on the press release, because
it's just insane. I just think that this was, for lack of better term, Junichi Masuda just blowing smoke up his self.
All right, well, then
I'm not gonna hold back here.
Clearly,
it made me angry.
Well, I can tell. Like you're being very angry in a Baja Blastoise T-shirt that we bought at the same. Like I bought a Weepin' Bell shirt at MagFest.
Refused to wear.
Yes, I refused to wear that. I did add, if you're watching the video version, some friends on top of my Marvel vs. Capcom. I have the 3 Kanto starters sitting on top, but. So Ben,
I'm gonna get banned from this podcast.
It didn't get much. It didn't get much better from there because I think in record time, transitioned into the part of the show where when we cover this on the podcast, we kind of glance over these announcements. So I'm going to run down these real quick and then see if there's anything you want to touch on at the end. So we got a sizzle reel of the Pokemon World Championships and XP, which are happening in San Francisco, August 28th through the 30th.
Tickets for XP still not available on sale. We're supposed to be over the summer. Continue.
Aren't you a ray of sunshine today?
I really am.
So the Pokemon trading card game is getting a set celebrating the 30th anniversary with tag team cards featuring classic characters. Pokemon Go is doing a joint celebration of the series' 30th anniversary and the game's 10th anniversary, which means Pokemon Go has been around for a full third of Pokemon's existence, which is crazy and makes me feel extremely old. The Pokemon Go anniversary event starts in early March and will bring back several past event Pokemon. Pokemon Masters EX is adding Red 1996 and Pikachu, plus some other trainers and a reward of 3,000 gems for logging in before March 31st. Pokemon Cafe Remix is running a roundup event featuring the starters of the various games, and the first one fittingly starring Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle. Pokemon Sleep is adding Mew. Pokemon Unite is adding Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres today. Plus, they announced that Meganium, Typhlosion, and Feraligatr are joining in the near future. And Pokemon TCG Pocket is adding a new set called Paldean Wonders, plus a booster pack event to celebrate the series' 30th anniversary. So that was a lot of stuff there.
Pokemon Sleep also appears to be adding Latios and Latias. They were at the end.
Okay.
Flying over what looked to be Venice.
All right. So do any of these quick things that we just touched on appeal to you, or do you feel like any of them are worth drilling more into?
I mean, I play Pokemon Go regularly, and I play Pokemon Sleep regularly. So these are nice. Pokemon Go has an event this weekend, the Go Tour Kalos. So that'll be going on. And then their main Pokemon Go Fest will be happening this summer in Chicago, and then there will be a global one. There's actually been like a lot of Pokemon Go news over the past week. They're redoing like how they do events and everything like that. For Pokemon Sleep, it's about time to add other characters or whatever. The rest of it, it's all slop to me.
Not a big Pokemon. I never played Pokemon Masters EX. I tried to. I did when it first came out. And I played a little bit here and there, but it's on my phone still, but I don't have time for an extra mobile app. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, that's exactly why I don't play like more mobile games. Is like some of them, like if you have more than one or two that you have to check in on every day, it really starts feeling like a chore.
Right.
And I for a while I had Marvel Strike Force and Pokemon Go and Clash Royale all going at the same time, and it was just like especially once the world like kind of started opening back up after COVID, it was like I need to get rid of some of these games and like move back into having a life once again.
Yeah. So
I'm just on Clash Royale at this point, and every once in a while I'll fire up Balatro on my phone. But outside of that, I don't play any of these games anymore. Like Masters EX seems like it should be up my alley. I just never really checked it out beyond like the first couple of things. Like I think that like a lot of those games have fun core premises, but then like once it's like, oh, well, then you need these 17 different currencies, that's when it loses
problem.
me.
Yeah. So like that Pokemon Masters EX was great at the beginning, and I liked the idea of the different trainers interacting and everything like that, but all the different currencies wore me down. I just
miss the days of when mobile games could just be simple and fun and you pay once and that's it. Maybe that's my old man take since today's my 39th birthday, but like I don't know, like I like mobile games in general, but it's always in spite of the general like structure of them. Like because
Today's your birthday?
It is my birthday. Pokemon Day has always been my birthday.
Oh my God, that's right. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But that's my old man take is like, maybe we should make mobile games fun again. And not convoluted messes of currencies that are designed to confuse you and be like, all right, how much was 17,000 gems? Is that $10 or is that my entire life savings? I don't know. It depends on what game you're playing.
Yeah.
If you're chasing data down instead of seeing it in one place, you need the Intuit ERP. Intuit Enterprise Suite. All your data in one place with built-in AI for real-time insights. Learn more at intuit.com/ERP.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get into some of the bigger stuff that was shown off and announced. When we learned in the first place that GameCube Classics were coming to the Switch 2's Nintendo Switch Online library back in April of last year, Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness was one of the ones that they showed as being added in the future, but we never heard another word about it until today. And we now know that what I would say is the first real console RPG in the Pokemon series it's been trapped on the GameCube since it came out. What is it, 2005? I think this originally arrived. Yeah, 2005.
Yes.
It's finally coming over to the Switch 2 via the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack subscription. I don't know why we can't do that for the other Pokemon games, but here we are.
Well, two things. Sorry, you know what? Continue. Then I'll...
Okay. So this game, Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, focuses heavily on the concept of shadow Pokemon. So there are 83 of them that you need to snatch and purify, or snag and purify, I guess. The story takes place 5 years after the events of Pokemon Coliseum. You play as a character who must travel around to test Professor Crane's snag machine, which lets you capture other trainers' Pokemon. And Crane wants you to capture these shadow Pokemon, but then you and Crane soon get involved with a plot involving Cypher, which is the game's criminal organization. And it has become a bit of a cult classic here. But the game was not exactly the best received or best reviewed title in series history. It got a 5.75 out of 10 from Game Informer, and it currently has a 64 on Metacritic. I actually own a physical copy of Gale of Darkness because I was never really like a huge GameCube guy, but my brother, who is 7.5 years younger than me, had a GameCube growing up. And when he gave up his GameCube for a Wii, he handed me his GameCube and all of the games that he had, and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness was one of them, but I've never actually played it. Have you?
I love this game.
Really?
I love this game so much. Two things. One, where's Pokemon Coliseum?
Yeah. I think they announce that was also one of the ones? Okay.
Yeah. So this is strange. That's number one. Number two, I think that the decision to include this in the virtual... Notice that for this game, they did not mention any Pokemon Home compatibility.
Correct.
I think that is partly why it's being included in the virtual console and it's not a separate purchase versus FireRed LeafGreen. You're not going to be... The Pokemon are going to be locked to that game. You're not going to be able... maybe I'm wrong. You're not going to be able to have any sort of compatibility with a Pokemon Home or anything like that. Or even Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen, which did have compatibility with these games back in the day.
Yeah,
Look at me apologizing for them.
I think that is actually the best case that I've heard for putting some of the classic like mainline games on Switch and Switch 2 natively rather than through Nintendo Switch Online.
Yeah.
Is one, I mean, they can get away with it. And two, so like why put it on for free when you could put it on for $20 a pop?
Right.
And two, the Pokemon Home functionality, because the original vision for Pokemon, once they decided they were going to do multiple generations on top of multiple generations, was you should be able to transfer your Pokemon forward. Obviously, there've been a couple of breaks in that chain where it's like you have to do absurd workarounds in order to get some of the older Pokemon forward into modern systems. Right. So I could see a world where, Masuda, Omori, and the rest of the leadership at Game Freak and the Pokemon Company are saying, let's make that a possibility through putting all of the old generations. Because, we technically already have a Gen 1 game in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, but putting an actual Gen 1 game, even if it's a remake in the form of FireRed LeafGreen, we don't have anything for Gen 2. We don't have anything for Gen 3. We have Gen 4. And then, we have 8, 9, and then 10 coming soon. So they're slowly filling out the generations. And I think that whether we get Heart Gold and Soul Silver in a future release, or maybe they do Let's Go Johto, like we've been speculating for years now, and that is a way to have the Gen 2 represented in Pokemon Home, and then maybe one day we get Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire to start rounding out these generations more and more, because we are now getting to the point where these modern remakes, modern in quotes, because, you know, this FireRed LeafGreen is 22 years old now. So it's, I don't know if we can call them modern remakes, but more modern remakes. And same thing for Heart Gold and Soul Silver. You know, that's about 2 decades old as well. We are getting to a place where these don't feel out of place if they just put them on the eShop. And if they were to do that, that would open up a whole new world of which Pokemon are available to bring forward, which I think is addressing one of the main criticisms that a lot of people had when we got to this Switch generation, which was, you know, the national Pokedex just felt completely incomplete with the introduction of Sword and Shield and then Scarlet and Violet, to the point that, like, you know, I think that they were like kind of taken aback by how much backlash there was about that. Like they seemed surprised that like there was that much, you know, outcry from the community. So I think that this is them slowly working their way towards filling in these generations and making it so you can, you know, fire up FireRed and LeafGreen, start with your Charmander, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and then bring them all the way through that game, and then transfer them to another game, and then transfer them to another game, and then before you know it, when Gen 10 comes out next year, you can have this team that you have brought up all the way from Gen 1. I don't think we're going to get it in that type of timeline where it's going to be all the generations are available before the next mainline game hits. But I think that you know, by the end of the Switch 2 life cycle, maybe we will have most of the generations represented. I mean, there's been a lot of clamoring for kind of like a black and white remake. Yeah. You know, I think that there's a possibility that we will have the majority of generations represented over the next, let's say, 7 or 8 years.
Right. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I don't think that we're going to get a remake. I don't think that we're going to get a Heart Gold Soul Silver back. I think that if we're going to get anything, and I don't think it's going to be a Let's Go thing, I think that if we get anything, it's going to be more like Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl,
which I'd be fine with.
Yeah.
Like, give me Heart Gold, Soul Silver, basically, but like, you know, kind of more modern visuals, maybe an extra area that you can explore, like they did with the Underground and Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, where they expanded that so much.
Right.
I mean, there's stuff they could do with that, but XD Gale of Darkness, you know, it's a cool thing to have coming to Nintendo Switch Online.
Will you play it?
I might fire it up and see what it's all about. I doubt highly that I will play through all the way to the end, just because I have other stuff that I need to play for work and this podcast and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm always kind of, it's weird. For FireRed and LeafGreen, I'm like, man, I wish they would just put that on Nintendo Switch Online. And then I look at Wind Waker and I'm like, man, I wish they would have just done Wind Waker HD on Switch.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's also for other reasons, because the Triforce Hunt and everything is a slog in both versions. Weird decisions. Yeah. Well, XD Gale of Darkness is coming to Switch 2 online in March, so we don't have long to wait for that. The next thing was Pokemon Champions. So they announced this last year during this same event, but we've only really seen glimpses of it without much detail to this point. And during this year's stream, we learned that it is coming to Switch less than 2 months from now. So April is when we are getting the Switch version, and then the mobile version is arriving later this year. Ben, you have played some competitive Pokemon in your day, primarily TCG, if I'm not not mistaken, but I'm sure you've dabbled in playing like battles in the games themselves against other people who are super into the series.
Nope.
No, okay. But
it just seems so complicated. It's a whole community that like people get ingrained in it, and I celebrate that, but I just don't see. I see that I view it as it's a difficult barrier of entry.
Sure. But you watch competitive Pokemon, or
no?
Okay.
I do not understand it.
Well,
and
do you
I'm
have any
okay
hopes
with that.
Do you have any hopes for this game or app or whatever this ends up being?
I think that this was the natural progression of what things were going to be in terms of software and Pokemon being like an esports thing. Like, and I think I said similar things last year when we did Pokemon Presents. Like this is the natural progression of things. You get your one catch-all
Good pun.
battle simulator that doesn't involve any catching. And you basically have this to do it's a battle simulator. That's what
it's
it is.
basically modern Pokemon Stadium is what it looks like, minus maybe the mini games.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it looks cool. Like, I don't know if there's going to be like microtransactions involved. I don't know, like what the fact that there's mobile versions give me a little bit of pause, but that might just be so that you can battle anywhere. And like, it has home integration. So like, you're going to be able to transfer your Pokemon and bring them forward. So like, hey,
I think making this the software for the World Championship this year, yet this thing is not out yet and it doesn't come out until April, is a very bold choice. You're basically asking the competitive scene to get used to an interface that is probably going to be similar.
Yeah, I can't see it deviating too much. It's the same basic mechanics.
Right. But with anything like this, there's going to be bugs. It's going to be clunky. Like, and so I find it a little, like, I think that if it came out in January, that's a little bit of an easier ask. It's not coming out till April. I don't know.
I think that it's going to be fine just because it is turn-based, so even if there is clunkiness and like getting around the menus, it's not like they're getting attacked while they're trying to select their attack,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but also there's a possibility that moves won't work correctly. Like, I just think that there's a lot of different elements that could go wrong.
Well, hopefully 4 months that they have from launch to that will allow them to shore up any bugs. And I'm sure that like they'll focus on the meta Pokemon first and before like Worlds, just to make sure everything is 100% in order, because I can't imagine the controversy that would come out if like there was something where a move was supposed to poison an opponent and doesn't for whatever reason because there's a bug. But I don't know. They've been doing turn-based battling for 30 years now. I think they've figured this out pretty well. And if they don't, I think they'll be able to fix it fairly quickly, unless there's something completely wrong with it. But I don't know. This also feels like it's been in development for quite a while. So
yeah, that is true.
I could see this. I understand your concerns, but I think that, I don't know, maybe it's misplaced faith, but there's one thing I have faith in Game Freak and the Pokemon Company, and that is creating turn-based battles.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have faith in them to make it so a game runs well on a Nintendo console, which is bad.
QA, yeah.
But I do have faith in them to create a good turn-based battle system. And that's what this basically is. I mean, I would like it if there's like some really cool animations. Like, that's what they really need, is they need animations to extend beyond what we've seen in like Final Fantasy X back in 2002.
Right.
Which I would argue we maybe are finally starting to get with Legends ZA. Finally, we're getting some cool animations in some of these games.
Yeah. if they're doing, here's the thing that I don't fully get though. Like, if they're playing like in a tournament, I don't see any reasonable situation where you should be allowed to use your phone. You would have to use the Switch, because what if you get like a phone call like while you're like, it's just it's strange, right?
I bet it'll be on. I think that the phone version is probably just for people who are like out and about and they're like, oh yeah, I've been playing Pokemon Champions. Like, oh, me too. I don't have my Switch with me. Okay, well, I have my phone with me. I think that's what that is. I think that I would have to bet that like the actual competitive play would take place on Switches.
The closest thing that I could think of that basically has a similar stuff is Pokemon Unite, right? Like, because that's also phone, that's also Switch. I'm pretty sure that if they're playing at Worlds, because that's also one of the games they play at Worlds, then they're playing it on a console.
Mm-hmm.
I would think.
I would think so too. Well, that is coming out on Switch in April and iOS and Android later this year. So that's another indication they're probably going to be using the Switch version.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder if they'll time the iOS and Android version to go live with Worlds, so that way people can walk around Worlds battling each other.
True. Yeah.
Well,
possible.
There's that news, so we have that to look forward to in April. And then we mentioned Pokemon Legends ZA just recently. They already gave us the Mega Dimension DLC back in December, and now we're getting a new Mega Garchomp Z, which you can claim via the mystery gift functionality. And then we also had a new trailer for Pokemon Pokopia, which is coming out next week, showing off some of the Pokemon that you will meet while you play, including DJ Rotom, who can play CDs that you give him featuring classic Pokemon music, and Chef Dente, who can teach your character how to cook. Ben, what is your hype level for Pokopia? Because it is it's definitely an off the beaten path type of spin-off, but you know, cozy games are big right now.
I had no hope for this game. It is kind of off my radar. But now I'm a little curious.
Yeah.
What
did it for you?
I don't know. I think that
is it just like Christmas morning where you're like, okay, finally it's here. I'm excited for it because it's here.
I think honestly that's it. Just Pokemon Animal Crossing, basically.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I might end up getting it.
Well, I mean, it's by the studio that did Dragon Quest Builders, and it seems like they have a lot of elements of that in this game. So that's also, you know, those are very well liked games, Dragon Quest Builders 1 and 2. So there's some hope there as well.
Yeah.
But we'll be talking more about Pokopia next week as it comes out. We'll do the full review episode. And Ben, finally, we got the big announcement. I was 100% certain it was going to happen this year.
Yeah.
But there was one surprise in particular that I was not anticipating. But Pokemon Winds and Pokemon Waves. This is the 10th generation of games that we have been speculating on and anticipating for about a year now, I would say.
Yeah.
And it's the next mainline entries in the Pokemon series. And the biggest thing we got was a look at the region. And the region looks like it's tropical of some sort of tropical region. We got islands, we got beaches, we got the inside of a volcano, we got underwater sequences, which you know, that kind of makes it seem like we'll be able to explore the depths, maybe even more than a usual Pokemon game. So that's exciting.
Pikachu in outfits.
Yeah, Pikachu. We got the beach party Pikachu outfits that I was very happy with. And speaking of outfits, your outfit as a trainer varies depending on the version that you buy. But regardless of which version you buy, you'll have the same 3 starter Pokemon to choose from. So there's Brout, which is a grass type chicken looking Pokemon. We have Pombon, which is a fire type puppy. And we have Gekwa, which is a water gecko. So very, very good name for Gekwa.
Yeah.
Do you have an early favorite of these 3?
I really like Gekwa and Pombom.
Not a fan of Brout?
Nope.
Okay. There always is one that people are not like super high on. I remember when Poplio was like...
Yeah, I didn't care for that one either.
I actually ran with Poplio in my playthrough. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm probably gonna go Ponbon. Like I like a cute dog Pokemon, and this is a very cute dog Pokemon. Gekwa's pretty cool as well. I don't hate Brout.
Gekwa, I think, is cool. Definitely a great name.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with it is that it seems very close to Sobble.
I was thinking that as well. And I'm like, where Inteleon looks like it would be the perfect evolution of Gekwa.
Right. And then the other, the grass one, the grass chicken one seems pretty cool. Yeah.
And Rowlet is not going to be topped in terms of how cool that evolution line is.
Decidua, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Dartrix and Decidua. They're fantastic, and I like Rowlet. Rowlet was an iconic Pokemon from like that the Sun and Moon, right?
Yeah.
I sometimes I confuse the Sun
and
Moon
then brought back for Legends Arceus.
Yeah. So I don't know. I like the starters overall, but I think that Pomban is probably my favorite of the three. But yeah, I don't mind the other three either. But yeah, you're right. Gekwa, my first thought was like, that's a small version of Inteleon. That's not Sobble is. It's almost like how people are like, Gyarados should have been the final evolution of Dratini and Dragonair. That's almost how it feels with Inteleon and Gekwa.
Yeah.
So we didn't get much more in way of details, but how did you feel about the visuals and the way the region looks?
It looks fine. It looks, I guess, better than Scarlet and Violet.
Oh, I think it looks way better than Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah.
Like, I think the environment, like the lava and the water in particular caught my eye as like, this looks much more natural. It looks more higher resolution, higher detail. Like the lava flow looks so much better than any other Pokemon game we've seen. I know we're talking like we're looking at a game on Xbox 360, but sometimes that's how it feels with Pokemon.
Yeah.
I think that like, it looks better, but I also am like, man, they really need to update some of these like character models.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Then we got the surprise.
Yeah, so I thought for sure this game was going to be a 2026 release. It's the 30th anniversary. I thought we were going to get that. And I would bet that the Pokemon Company wanted that too. My thought process is the fact that Pokemon Winds and Pokemon Waves is coming to Switch 2 in 2027, which was the big surprise. I think that is them saying, we can't have another Scarlet Violet situation where we launch a game and it just runs like garbage on the system that we are developing it for. It's not like this is a multi-platform release and it runs great on the other systems and just Switch is way less powerful than the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. No, this is the only system you are developing it for. It needs to run well on that system. So I could see a world where they're like, okay, we could probably have it done for this holiday season. Let's give ourselves a longer runway just to be safe, because I made the case a couple episodes ago that I think that this is a pivotal entry in the series, not only because I think people were underwhelmed with Sword and Shield and then they were outright angry about Scarlet and Violet. If you have three either underwhelming or bad or like just upsetting from like a technical perspective mainline entries, I mean, you're coming up on almost a third of the total Pokemon mainline games that just aren't received, and 3 in a row. And not only that, but I think that a lot of the more junior staffers are starting to step up into those senior roles. I mentioned how Masuda is now full-time at Pokemon Company instead of at Game Freak now. Shigeru Omori seems pretty occupied with Beast of Reincarnation. They are the two that have overseen the past few Pokemon games. Yeah. So I'm assuming that this game is, I mean, maybe Omori is also directing or producing this, but it just seems like it would be a lot on his plate if he's also overseeing Beast of Reincarnation. And I think that what we're going to see is some of these like less experienced, less prominent figures at Game Freak stepping into leadership roles, and I think that is another reason that this is a pivotal entry. And I'm happy now that I've thought about it more that it is coming out in 2027, because I think that they really need a home run with this, and that's going to give them the best chance to do that.
Yeah, I agree. When do you think in 2027 we're going to get this?
I think it's going to be early in 2027. I'm going to say April 2027. That's going to be my official guess for now. But as of February 2026, I'm going to say April 2027.
Okay, interesting. So then they'll talk about this again during next year's Pokemon Day when you're 40.
I would be shocked if this is a holiday 2027 release. That just seems like a long ways away.
It does seem like a long ways away, but it also took them a long time to do Legends ZA, right?
Yeah, but I guess that was like a year and change, right? No, that you're right. You're right.
2
Yeah, we got
years.
but we didn't get actual gameplay when they revealed that. It was just
Correct.
the overview of Lumio City, but it was a cinematic. It wasn't even like
Yes.
a gameplay swoop through. This seems like it's further along than Legend ZA was at the time.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you about April.
It also looks better, by the way, than Legends
Yeah.
Arceus ever did in its trailers. Like Legends Arceus, you may recall that original trailer, there were Pokemon that were moving in slideshow animation.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of them ended up moving like that in the final game as well. But all the animations that they showed in this, unless I missed something, like I only watched it once through, but unless I missed something, they were moving pretty smoothly. Like the characters, we saw them running through the environment. There wasn't any like crazy pop in or stuttering or anything like that. So I could, I don't know. I
So
can see a world where this is early 2027.
So we get typically a Pokemon Presents again over the summer.
Mm-hmm. Or early fall.
I think last year was like July 27th, but yeah, like somewhere around there. What do you think they're going to talk about?
I mean, they're probably going to show more like Gen 10 Pokemon. That's usually what they do. And then once we get that next Pokemon Presents, I think it's going to start being like kind of that slow leak full of, not leak in the sense that we've had with Pokemon lately, but the slow drip feed of, all right, like here's a new Pokemon that is going to be in here. And then they're just going to put out like the highlight videos, like they did with Wug Trio, when they just put out like, here's a weird looking guy that calls back to Gen 1 but is in Gen 9. Like I think that we're going to get like that slow drip feed of like, after we get like a kind of a shotgun blast of Gen 10 Pokemon in a Pokemon Presents, like probably like 3 to 5 new Pokemon, we will slowly get like additional looks at Pokemon in the generation, and then some like story stuff with like, maybe we'll learn about the professor, maybe we'll learn about like one of the legendaries, we'll see the box art, and we'll probably learn about like either the rival or the criminal organization.
So you don't think that we're going to get some sort of holiday release for Pokemon at all, for anything? Because I think that they would announce that during the summer.
Yeah, maybe I thought you were talking specific to Winds and Waves, what we were going to get on that.
I was, but I also wasn't.
I mean, maybe they do a remake. When did they announced Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, I think on Pokemon Day.
They announced Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl on Pokemon Day, and then they said, but another adventure awaits, and then they announced Arceus right after it.
Okay. So it wouldn't follow the same timeline as that. I mean, maybe we get another spin-off game. I don't know. Those were the two big predictions I had, is we were going to get a remake and we were going to get a spin-off game. Neither of those really happened on this Pokemon Presents. But I feel like there's got to be one more announcement. But you're right. Like, it's weird that we don't have a holiday Pokemon release as of now.
For the 30th anniversary. That seems strange.
Yeah. But, you know, we've gotten we just saw Nintendo do absolutely nothing for the Legend of Zelda 40th anniversary, so I'll take this over that.
True. That is true.
So what do you think, I guess I'd ask you this about your biggest hopes for what did I even ask you about? Your biggest hopes for Pokemon Champions. What are your biggest hopes for Winds and Waves?
That it runs better.
Yeah.
That's it. A story that's like really engaging and doesn't feel stiff.
Yeah, I mean, that's the trick, right? Like, it doesn't, like, I feel like they could have led with like, we're adding voice acting, and that would have been nice.
Right.
But it doesn't. I mean, there's no indication. I don't think did we get any dialogue at all in this? No. Like, I think it was just like action shots and exploration and like drone shots.
We know it exists.
Yeah.
We know the bare minimum.
We might. I mean, I think it's a long shot that there's going to be voice acting introduced in Pokemon, but I mean, having played some Pokemon games in like relatively recently, with, you know, Legends ZA being the most prominent example, the voice acting really does in 2026. It makes the story feel less impactful, and I know that is maybe
the lack of story.
Yes, the lack of voice acting makes this.
Yeah, I agree.
because I just like my eyes glaze over during some of these
Something's
longer
missing.
conversations.
Yeah.
And it's like a big reveal will happen, and I'm like, oh, that should hit really hard. But for
Right.
whatever reason, I'm just sitting here staring blankly, like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know, and I know that that's maybe a casual RPG take, and like people who've been playing RPGs as long or longer than I have are maybe like, what are you talking about? Like this, reading the dialogue is fine, but for me, it just, I don't know. I think that the medium has evolved so much in the last 30 years that it feels weird to not at least
There's no
have,
excuse to not do it. This
at
is
least in
ridiculous.
cutscenes, you know, like in like big moments. Again, I know I make this comparison to Final Fantasy X often, but Final Fantasy X had voice acting, not for everything, but for the big moments, you know, in
Right.
the story beats and the main characters. A lot of their lines are voiced. But if it's just like idle chit chat with an NPC, it's not voiced. I think that route would work well for Pokemon. And I don't think we're getting it with Winds and Waves, but maybe one day in the future. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with this. But what are your overall thoughts? What's your letter grade for this Pokemon Presents?
Maybe a B-.
Okay, I'm sitting at a C.
Yeah,
I
B-
think that,
C.
you know, I could be convinced to do a C plus. I think Champions continues to look pretty cool. Winds and Waves, like everybody was anticipating that, so it's cool that that's coming out. Maybe it would be a B- for me if we didn't know about FireRed and LeafGreen and they announced that during this. And I mean, I'm not going to knock them for announcing something early, but yeah, I mean, like you said, like there's a lot of stuff that just wasn't in my wheelhouse, like a lot of those mobile games and live service titles. Pokopia, it's kind of at the point where it's like, all right, let's just play this game. I don't need more information on it. And then I don't know, the Legends ZA, just I felt like they could have gone bigger with that. Like Mega Garchomp Z, it's cool, it looks cool, but like
it just stinks that these things are so formulaic now, right?
Like, we know what's coming. There's going to be a weird merchandise thing. Then we're going to get into the
Mobile
Pokemon
slot.
Worlds, and then we're going to get into the mobile stuff and like live service stuff, and then like some updates on the console stuff, and then some trailers, and then one big reveal.
One big reveal. Like I don't know. I'm not excited right now.
Yeah,
but maybe we're old. You are 39.
Maybe.
Today.
I mean, I can tell you for a fact.
Yes.
What do you think it was missing the most? Like, what would have brought this up to a B plus, maybe bordering on an A minus, if they gave us this one announcement, or maybe even two announcements?
This is kind of an abstract answer.
Oh boy.
But real ambition. There just doesn't feel like there's originality and creativity right now.
That's fair.
The franchise. It feels very formulaic and safe.
Much like the Pokemon Presents themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a less abstract answer for me would be either a remake or a spinoff, like just another project for us to look forward to that is going to appeal to the longtime fans who just want to kind of exist in the Pokemon world, you know. And yeah, we have Pokopia next week and Champions and stuff like that, but that's all stuff we knew about. And I think that having just, I mean, we learned about the Game Boy Jukebox, which you were not a fan of. I think it's fine, but the lack of having just one more thing to look forward to, even if it's just like just something to look forward to this holiday season, you know. Like Winds and Waves is great, and that's a really big announcement, and people are going to be stoked for that. It's probably going to be one of the early top sellers on the Switch 2 when it comes out. But I don't know how like having that come out in 2027 is like getting me super hyped in this moment.
I think that they do release a holiday game. I think that they do some sort of Johto thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they have Ilka do it.
That'd be cool. I mean, again, I'd be all in favor for that. I think Heart Gold and Soul Silver are the best Pokemon games ever released.
Me too.
And it would be cool to have an updated version of that playable. I don't know that they are going to, I mean, I guess Pokemon FireRed, LeafGreen doesn't really count as like another remake, they re-released another remake already this year, so I don't know if that would like encourage them to not put another remake in 2026 and have that be like their main stuff. But I don't know, what is Ilka up to? We have no idea.
They just do Pokemon Home stuff as far as I know, but maybe they're working on something else. Maybe they're working on the Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl version of Johto.
Yeah, I mean, I'm holding out hope for that.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite thing overall?
No.
And it's got to be Winds and Waves, right? Like,
I guess so. Like, I mean, nothing excites me anymore with this franchise.
That's unfortunate.
Right now. Like, but that's the challenge, right? Do things that make things exciting.
Yeah. I mean, that's the eternal challenge for any of these franchises. And I think that it's weird how Pokemon kind of flies in the face of a lot of other, not only RPG franchises, but Nintendo franchises. Like, Nintendo has this thing where they need to add some degree of reinvention every new entry, right? Like Mario Odyssey, that is as close to a spiritual successor of Super Mario 64 as exists in the world. Right. But there's an entire completely different like mechanic where you can capture enemies and run around as them and use their powers. And that is something we've never seen in another Mario game. Right. And like outside of, like taking an enemy's like power up that they had, like the Koopas with the capes and stuff like that in Mario World. But like, I think that Pokemon, and then like, every Final Fantasy game is so different from the previous one. And Pokemon kind of has gotten stuck in this loop of, all right, we're going to add a new gimmick and that's about it, right? Like, we're going to make it look better. We're going to add new Pokemon, add a new gimmick, but they're not going to,
and possibly subtract ones that people liked.
Yeah. Like, it's rare that there is an actual, again, excuse the pun here, evolution of the franchise in the sense of like, this is completely different. And I understand that like the franchises
games are like that.
Which one?
The Legends games are like that.
Yeah, the Legends games actually try bold new directions, which I am really glad that those exist, because that's the only place that we're really getting like true innovation. I mean, yeah, Scarlet and Violet going actual open world was a big step forward, but it didn't work well in terms of like technical side.
Right.
And then, I mean, maybe Winds and Waves is going to be like exponentially larger than Scarlet and Violet, and now they've worked out all the kinks of how to make an open world game on a Nintendo console. If that is true, then yeah, that's great. That's going to be the game that we've been waiting for. But I don't see anything that's telling me like this is like just them swinging for the fences.
Right.
So, all right. Well, that is the Pokemon Presents for 2026. We'll have to look forward to this. First next week because of Pokopia, then April for Pokemon Champions, and then maybe sometime in the summer or early fall we'll get another Pokemon Presents and learn if there is in fact going to be a Pokemon release this holiday season.
Yeah.
But Ben, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of All Things Nintendo.
Thank you for having me. I always enjoy doing these. I don't know why I can't seem to remember that today was also your birthday, but you know what? Happy birthday.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. As you know, my Patreon and the associated Discord server are the best ways to get any questions or comments in, but you can also get in touch with me at brian@allthingsnintendo.com or hit me up on Blue Sky or Instagram at Brian P. Shea. Ben, tell everyone where they can find you online.
You can find me on Twitter, or X or whatever. It's Dr. Ben MD, doctor spelled out. You can also find me on Instagram, Ben Richlin MD. I'm working on a project with a friend of the show, Johnny Gioeli, called Friends with Bennies. We've already released 2 songs.
One of which is the Pokemon theme song.
One of which is the Pokemon theme song. So please give that a listen. It's available on all streaming platforms, along with our re-release of Persona 3 Reloads. It's going down now. And we've got more in the pipeline.
We'll look forward to that. But that is our show for this week. Thank you again for listening. Take care. We'll see you next time. Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode of All Things Nintendo. Before we wrap up this edition of the podcast, I just want to give a special thank you to the $10 patrons of the show. Alex Stadnick, Andy Junkins, Ben Richlin, Chad Brecky, Chaps My Ass, Derek Sigmund, Dusty Beeman, Ian T. Clark, Jawar Hello, Johnny Five, Jose Villalobos, Joshua DeProy, Casey Radio Man, Cody Gibson, Creeper207, Ozman83, Paul at Drunk on Mako, Pratable, Rob McCann, Bobby Mac 265, Robert Sosa, Roberto Nieves, Roger Reichert, Russell Sayer, Smithy Poo, Zane Sink, and Zek 3 Sword Sama. I know I say it every episode, but really, thank you so much for continuing to support this podcast. It would not exist without people like you.
Hey there, I'm Hugh from Poderation, and if you liked today's show, why not check out Roll for Riz, a podcast as ridiculous and cheesy as its title implies. You might have heard of Isekai. You might have heard of Reverse Isekai. But have you heard of D&D Reverse Isekai, where an adventuring party finds themselves in modern-day Japan with their powers completely and utterly intact? It sounds ridiculous, right? But it sounds like you want to listen to it, right? Find Roll for Riz wherever you can get your podcasts.